Good evening, fellow beekeepers here in southern Bedford County. Today's March 14th, 2022, and got in my hives for a brief amount of time this afternoon, and have noticed that they have been really eating the feed down. And I wanted to show you tonight. I've had some people ask me what we do throughout the winter. I'll be honest with you, I prefer the Daydant winter patties. I think it provides some nutrition. I think it provides some protein, which the bees need for getting through the winter. However, we're this late into the beekeeping season. We're going to be probably putting syrup on, hopefully here maybe in the next week or so, depending on what the temperatures do. And so what I'm going to do tonight is just going to make a basic emergency winter sugar brick, and it's really easy. There's a lot of different methods you can do for this. You could put a piece of newspaper down, put some just dry granulated sugar on top of it, and that would hold them over. I prefer this method. I think it's a little less messy. I've also read that sometimes if the bees get the loose sugar, sometimes they'll just carry it out the front of the entrance and dump it off. So this is what works best for me. As with anything I do, this seems to work well for me. Some may have a different take on it or point of view, and that's fine too. So the easiest thing here to do is we'll just go ahead and get started and begin to mix our sugar feed for our bees. So the first thing you're going to need is just a 4-pound bag. I find it to be the most convenient of granulated sugar. I get this wherever. Just make sure it's regular white granulated sugar. It's not anything else. It's not anything else fancy. Just a plain white granulated sugar. And then we'll take a measuring cup with just regular water. So here we are, we're back. What I normally use is just a regular mixing bowl and just a regular spoon. Through the years, I gathered these from Walmart. These are really small cookie sheets. These work really well, and I'll show you here as we pack it into the sheet. You'll see why I sort of prefer these. Some people will put paper down. I personally don't. So let's get mixing. First thing you want to do is take your 4 pounds of sugar, dump it in your bowl. Pretty easy so far. Second thing, for 4 pounds, I find that approximately 1/2 of a cup of water is plenty. You want these to be hard. You don't want them to be anything that's going to draw moisture to your hives. So what I do is we'll just dump that slowly into the mix. Once you have it dumped in, what you want to do is just slowly start trying to incorporate that water. You're going to notice it is not going to make you don't want a wet sugar when you do this. I always say the consistency that you're looking for is sort of like snow. You don't want something too wet. Matter of fact, at the end here I'm going to show you what I do. You can let it sit out to dry, or I put it in the oven for a little while under real low heat to kind of dehydrate everything. So you want to just take your spoon, mix well. Now some people will use this year-round. As I said from the beginning, I use Daydant winter patties when it's dead of winter. Say when we're in January and we're first taking a peek inside the hive, when we see that they need feed. I prefer the Daydant patties just simply because there is some nutritional value to them. Like I said, at this point in the year, I wasn't going to go order more of them. So we'll just make do with this. So you want to mix. Some people will put vinegar in this. I would suppose If it was in December or January and we knew we still had a lot of time left, the vinegar is supposed to prevent from mold, mildew, those kinds of things. I personally don't, or haven't. Some people put a little splash of Honeybee Healthy. I haven't had any issues with the bees wanting to take this feed. They've been doing quite well. So as you see here, you see it's just a dry sugar. I like to say it kind of reminds me of snow. You can take it with your hands. You can make like a snowball with it. It's packable. So then all I do, I will take one of the cookie sheets, scoop out 2, maybe 3 scoops. Take your spoon and just pack it. Pack it in your corners. Pack it well. It doesn't need to be perfect. We're not necessarily making something that's going to be super beautiful or pretty or anything like that. We're just making a sugar brick to get the bees through the rest of the cold spell. Okay, we're done with that part. Now what I'll do is I'll put those in the oven. I set my oven goes down to 170. That's as low as it'll go, so I'll set it at 170 degrees. I'll let it sit in the oven maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. You'll be able to tell once the bricks they'll get really hard and they sort of get brittle. And at that point you can pull them out, and then at that point we'll put them on the hives. As I was saying, we just got through a cold spell. It was 13 degrees 2 nights ago. Some people saying that they've been using 1-to-1 sugar water, 2-to-1. I certainly don't want that in my hives because I know it produces moisture issues. But I think the weather's broken enough now that it probably in a few weeks we're going to be switching over to syrup feeding just to build them up a little bit before we get into the spring honey flow. Like I said, this is a simple thing. I have a lot of people that I know that'll come to me and say, well, it's too cold to open my bees up. Well, look at it this way. If your bees are going to starve to death, there's a 100% chance that the bees are going to be killed and they're going to die. I'm not saying you shouldn't wait for a warmer day, but sometimes in the middle of winter that doesn't happen. I know there's been times this past winter, as I said, I was feeding a lot of feed this winter. I've went through 120 pounds of Day-Dan patties, and you know, there's been days it's been 20, 25 degrees if I'm lucky, and I'm opening these hives up. Just open the inner cover quickly enough to slip some feed into them and to keep them going. I think too many people's been told that you have to wait till it's 50 or 60 or 40 or whatever degree to do that. And like I said, if your bees are going to die of starvation, they got 3 days roughly, and then they'll starve to death. So why would you not go out on the edge a little bit? And I've had no issues. The cold doesn't kill the bees. I'm not pulling frames out. I'm not pulling check and brood. I'm just popping the lid and slipping some feed into them. There's no issue to that when it's colder out. If your bees need fed, they need fed. And now as far as pollen patties, I do have pollen patties, and this will be another subject we'll cover on another video. I have pollen patties on all my hives. However, I've noticed they're not taking them. But on the other hand, I do have dry pollen. I use Ultra Bee dry pollen, and I have it set out in little bowls at each of my bee yards, and they're just taking it down as quick as could be. So for some reason, and which is normal, they want to be foraging for their food, and so I just wanted to give this tip. This is a simple candy. This is so if you've got some sugar around the house, you'll be able to make this easily. Get them through. The last time I put these on was about a week and a half of 2 weeks ago, and they're almost gone already. So if you don't think the bees are taking the feed and eating a lot of feed this time of year, they really are, and it's critical. A lot of beekeepers, if they've kept up with their mites and get them through the biggest part of the winter, this is when you'll lose bees, you know, due to starvation. And if the bees are right at the top, they're not going to go necessarily down or side by side, especially in that cold snap we had. They're not going to go down for their. You could have 300 pounds of honey below them, and they're not going to get down when it's cold like that. They'll starve to death. So this needs to be placed right above the cluster. I use a 1/4-inch shim board on all my hives and even my nukes, which I'll show you. And hopefully maybe then, when I get in to feed these, I'll take you along here with the camera and get some shots for you on just how simple it is. Open them up, drop a sugar block in, move on to the next hive. So appreciate y'all watching. If you'd like to hit the subscribe button, I'd appreciate that too. Plan to release some more videos as the beekeeping season goes on. Thank you guys. Take care.